Psychedelics in music might be the most interesting subject in the universe. At least it is to me. In this video, I want to talk about some of the most profound experiences that I've had with sound or music. I want to talk about how sound and music affect these experiences in such a profound way. This is going to be part one in a three-part series about music and psychedelics. So if you have any stories of your own about experiences while tripping and listening to music, please share that in the comments. That's going to be for part 3. When I was on 2 hits of LSD, I could feel the music I was listening to in like a hyper tangible way. When you're tripping, you experience the crossing of the senses, so sometimes it can feel like you're actually touching the music, or it could be tasting or seeing the music. Oftentimes it's multiple senses at the same time. I was listening to the song Expectation by Tame Impala, and there was a very strong earthy vibe emanating from this music. I could actually feel the texture of earthiness, like the texture of soil and mud and clay. It was coming out of this music, and this sensation contributed to this earthy, grounded feeling, but it was also embedded with a cosmic feeling. Later that same trip, I got to play music, and when I was looking at the fretboard of the guitar, I saw all the infinite, unmanifested possibilities that are contained within these limited number of frets. It's like millions, unimaginable amounts of combinations that you can get out of this limited sets of the strings. When I played the guitar, I felt connected to a very primal aspect of myself. I felt like a cosmic ape. The euphoria of the LSD mixed with this macro level perception of the universe at the same time created this cosmic smile in my soul. Yet the awareness of my primal nature also made me feel more like an ape than I've ever noticed. Playing the guitar felt like creation and destruction all mixed into one. I felt like there was a destructive force to the way that I was playing, very loud and heavy guitars. But this destructive energy was clearing the way for the new, so in a way, it was also begetting creativity. So it was very much this sensation of the snake eating its tail. Death being the cause for regeneration and rebirth. Destruction being the cause for creation. And that these things were intimately tied together in a loop. This sense of the snake eating its tail was occurring simultaneously at multiple levels of reality. Because while this was going on, I also felt like how we were these Neolithic beings. We were like cavemen essentially, but at the same time we're the beings that are very soon going to be loading into starships and exploring the universe. And I just felt how these things were connected and in a way happening almost at the same time, which if you think about it on a cosmic time scale, the distance between, Neolithic caveman to starship roving is really not that long of a time scale in the billions of years of evolution. The feedback sound of the guitar affected me like it never had before. Before it was just kind of like a cool trick that you could utilize, but now it felt like I could hear the primordial ohm of the universe in this wall of sound that I was creating. The sound of creation itself at a primordial level. Something about this particular sound amplified that. The electric amplification of feedback is a very unique and rich sound, rich in harmonics, and something about it amplifies very subtle aspects of sound. This cosmic feeling was unshakable. Playing with this feedback was like wielding the very creative power of exploding nebulas that create new stars. And the feedback also resonated with our primal nature at the same time. All of this was happening at once, reinforcing these cosmic ape vibes I was getting. I feel like this essence of like this screaming primal energy of creation is heard on John Coltrane's album Om, although it's with a saxophone instead of electric guitar feedback, I feel it's tapped into the same thing. And apparently LSD use was a huge part of this album and this time period for Coltrane's music. In my head, I felt like I was channeling Jimi Hendrix, and because I was also on LSD, I felt like I was tapping into the essence of what he must have felt all those years ago and channeling it in my own way. And at the same time, I felt like the boundary between me and the music was gone. It was like these sounds were actually happening inside of me, and because I had the guitar in my hand, I was able to express them in the moment. So another experience I had, I was listening to Flying Lotus after taking 4.5 grams of mushrooms. When I started coming up on my trip and then I put the song on, the bass in the music was represented by this very long green string in space. So it was like I was simultaneously traveling through space, kind of riding this green wave like some kind of giant cosmic water slide, and yet I was the whole thing, and I was vibrating and resonating with the music. So imagine that this green light is like a giant stringed instrument of the universe, and that the song was vibrating this string, and it's like light years across. There was another experience I had when I was on 4HO-MET where I was listening to a krautrock band called Nue, and they have these long sustained guitar notes that are like, and I could feel these notes inside of me. When I closed my eyes, it was as if these guitar notes were kind of painting my insides with light, and I could kind of feel my astral body or my soul light up with these colors as the music was coming down, like it illuminated my soul. These are all kind of rare moments when you're tripping and listening to music. Most of the time you close your eyes and you just get some really cool geometric visuals that move with the music, or some kind of emotional insight, which these are all great too, but I'm just kind of giving you some of the highlights of the more interesting and profound things that have happened listening to music on psychedelics. But I think we could all benefit from closing our eyes more when we're tripping, especially when we're listening to music. So I think that's something we should all emphasize a little bit more. The way that psychedelics impact visuals brings so many different things to mind. First of all, shapes and colors. It seems like the music is generating this real-time cymatics inside of your mind's eye. Different sounds can create different colors, textures, and shapes. The movement of the sound affects the movement in your visuals. Every sound equals a new sensation in your visuals. Not only do these visuals appear interesting and beautiful, but they also take on an emotional significance. Kind of how like the music itself has an immediate impact on your emotions, these visuals carry that emotional importance and weight that I feel like can't be replicated by just recreating the graphics of the visuals digitally. Alan Watts speculated that what we're seeing is a type of pattern recognition machine inside of our heads. In a way, we're seeing how we see, kind of like peering under the engine of how our vision works. I feel like music is creating a type of internal hologram in our minds. The hologram dances, morphs, and it's imbued with emotions. I've also heard Terence McKenna talk about, and also in my own experience, that when you're sitting and maybe not listening to music, your mind can take a sound that's happening in the periphery and spin visuals off of them. So you might not even notice that your fan is making a slight ticking sound, or the air conditioning unit is making a small like oscillation and hum. You might not even realize it, but your visuals are spinning off of that sensory input. Let's say the fan is going tick, 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 tick. Your visuals might be kind of like morphing on time with those clicks. And sometimes this can be happening without you even noticing, but if you just pay attention, you might notice that this is kind of where the source of some of your visions are coming from. After I started exploring psychedelics, I started to hear this very vivid music in my head. I would describe it as a 5-part symphony. It's a multi-layered kind of morphing, similar to the visuals, how there's multiple geometries and points and things all kind of interacting. It's almost the same exact thing, but in a musical form. And it can take many different formats, and just depending on what my brain has been accustomed to, that will be the format that it appears in. For example, I play in a band, and we're a 3-piece rock band, so 1 guitar, bass guitar, and drums. And a lot of the time, after playing with the band, I might be stoned and hear this music in my head, and it will be in the format of a 3-piece rock band. When I haven't jammed with them in a while, I might just hear a 5-piece symphony of just random sounds that are in my head that don't sound like a rock band. So it seems like it can kind of morph to any format. Kind of, if you're a musician, it's kind of like a MIDI software that you can plug and play different sounds, but it's still got that signal kind of running underneath. Something else happened after my big initial LSD experience, where I would enter this kind of flow state, usually after getting stoned, where everything in the world in ordinary reality would take on this extremely musical quality, and I couldn't ignore it. Everything just started to sound like music. The sound of someone's footsteps sounded like a rhythm. The sound of a friend's voice sounded like singing. I even had a time where I was going to the bathroom and I was peeing, and the sound of like the pee hitting the toilet water sounded like this beautiful, like cascading, like harp music, like so stuff like that. It's just like, what? I managed to capture one of these moments on my phone's voice memos, where I was walking outside and I started to notice the rhythmic patterns of my footsteps. So then that kind of evolved into this weird, like, odd time tap dancing. And I actually have that recording, and I'll post a link in the description so you can kind of see what I mean. It was all very much like improvised and felt like a flow state that you're just kind of like you're tapping into a current that's kind of always there, but we're just not aware of it. I feel like the sensation of music in the head is always there, and that this musical generation happening in my head is connected to that same engine that we see creating all of these geometries in the head, and that these things are intricately connected. It's like some kind of engine is running behind the scenes the whole time, and it's the source of vision and song, and it's connected to flow states. We don't know much about these sensations, but they're certainly profound. I'm going to add a link in the description of Alan Watts talking about these sensations. It's really interesting stuff, so check that out. So in the part 2 of this series, we're going to explore the esoteric nature of sound. And if you'd like to support this channel in any way, just go down to the description, and I've put a few different ways that you can support the channel directly. See you in the next one.